Welcome to toy-polloi. No Legos were harmed in the making of this video.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we are going to be restoring this vintage Action Man Navy Frogman outfit. But you can see straight away there is one thing missing, and that is the wetsuit, and without that the Navy Frogman really isn't a Navy Frogman. Now I've managed to sort of pick up lots of the pieces that I need to fix this suit. All of them need some repairs, but without the wetsuit it's never going to look much like the original figure did. Now for Action Man's 50th anniversary they did re-release the Navy Frogman, and it came with a wetsuit, but I never thought that wetsuit looked particularly good. It was really a bit too sort of oversized and baggy, and so I didn't bother buying one. But recently Nick very kindly got in touch with me and said there's a suit available on eBay that will do just the job that you need. So I've had a quick look, and this is what he was talking about, which is a sort of 1/6 scale black tight jumpsuit for a 12-inch figure. Now you can pick these up from China. They are, as you can see, this one was $10 plus $2.50 postage. So I bought one of those and it has just arrived. I've had a quick look at it. It's sort of in the packet, and it does look like a really good sort of modern version of a wetsuit. Obviously it is not a wetsuit, it's not made of the same material, but the overall effect I think will do what we need for this restoration. So that's what we're going to use today. So let's take a look at the jumpsuit and then we can start restoring this vintage Action Man Navy Frogman. So the package has arrived, and in it is this. As you can see, it's quite a small little package, but the actual jumpsuit inside looks like this. It's made of quite a nice sort of stretchy material, and it's got a bit of a shine to it. So I think by the time we put this onto Action Man, it really will look like a wetsuit. It's got a nice zip down the front, so we can easily get him in. And I'm going to say there's enough stretched here that it will fit quite snugly on the figure, which is what we want, because the original wetsuits that came with this Action Man were quite a nice tight fit. And as I say, the ones that came with the 50th anniversary version of the figure, I didn't think looked particularly good. They were really very baggy. They were made out of a rubbery material, but it was the bagginess that put me off. So this is what we're going to use for restoring this Action Man Navy Frogman. So here is my Action Man. Now the original version of the outfit came in 3 pieces. You had the trousers, you had the top, and then you had a hood. This is all one piece, and the original version also came in 2 different colours. I think the early versions were black and then later versions were orange. I'm going for the sort of early version look, and that's actually the one I wanted to complete. I just think it looks nice. It looks a little bit sort of like an SAS outfit or an SAS diver, so that's the one I've always wanted sort of back in my collection. But I think this will do the job really very nicely. It's going on quite easily. As you can see, the material's got quite a lot of stretch to it, so yeah, it's going to go on pretty nicely. Sometimes it's awkward getting any Action Man outfit over the hands. The thumbs always seem to get in the way, and sometimes when I'm actually putting Action Men together I take the hands off completely just to make everything that little bit easier. But we'll see how we get on with this. Now, there's a lot of stretch actually in this material, so it's not being too awkward to do. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Let's get the other arm in and we'll see what it looks like. And there we go, that's it on the figure. I think that looks really nice. It's quite figure hugging, which makes it look much more like a wetsuit, and I think it does look a whole lot better than the 50th anniversary version that they put out. So yeah, that's good. That is going to be the basis of our Navy Frogman. Now we can go ahead and start repairing all the pieces that I've collected over the last few years.
toy-polloi.
Here are the other key components of this outfit, and as I say, it did come in different colours, and all the accessories came in different colours as well, which is why I've got so many. Now I'm making the black version here with the black outfit, so I'm going to be picking the ones that went with that. There are 2 different versions of the oxygen tanks. The grey version is the one that came with the black outfit, so that's the one I'm going to be using. There are different masks as well. We have a black version and an orange version, and it was the orange version that came with the black outfit, so that's the one that I'm going to be using there. And likewise then we have the flippers. There's a blue version and a black version, and for this one it is the black version, so I'm going to be using those. It came with a little watch, as you can see here. This is a little sort of diver's watch. This is missing the sticker on the front, so we need to repair that. All of the elastic on these pieces needs replacing as well. I've actually got a video that I've previously done on repairing the masks. The plastic in the middle of this is not too bad, so I'm not going to be fixing that, but I do need to replace the elastic on here. We have to replace the elastic on here. We have the sort of knife holder that goes on the leg. Now this is from the 50th anniversary version, and because of that the elastic is too big. They've made it sort of fit over the new outfit, which took up a lot more space. So this one I don't think actually fits particularly well. It's supposed to go on the calf down here, and you can see it's really loose, so I'm going to replace all the elastic on that and make that a lot tighter and make that fit a lot better. We have the knife to go in that. There are two versions of that. There's one with a painted handle and one with an unpainted handle. I think it's the unpainted handle version that goes with this, so I'm going to be using that. We then also have 3 sticks of dynamite, because the original version was supposed to be some sort of demolition expert, but as you can see, often with these sticks of dynamite the ends, the little fuses, have snapped off. So I've been working out how to make a replacement, and there's one with a replacement fuse added, so we're going to be doing that as well. It's lots of little things that need doing on this project, but it will be worthwhile because I really want to get this diver looking good. So let's get started on fixing all of the issues on these pieces. Let's start with something quite simple, which is the dive watch. Now this just clips onto Action Man's hand, but it should have a little display on this, a little sort of yellow sticker with some dials on it to show that it is a watch. Often over the years that is lost because the glue sort of fails on it. So the first thing I need to do is actually make a replacement of that artwork. I found some images of it. I'm going to go into Photoshop and quickly make a new sticker to stick on this watch, and then we can put that in place. So that didn't take long at all, and I've now got a file that I can print out and just print it onto sticky backed glossy printer paper. That file is available for free from toy-polloi.com. But would you believe it, while I was filming that I was doing some other work on another project, and I went and had a look in my Action Man box of spares, and look what was at the bottom of it. I actually found an original version of that sticker, so I'm going to just use that on my one. If you don't have that, then as I say, use that file, print it onto sticky backed glossy printer paper and stick it on. It will look really nice. For me though, I'm just amazed that I actually managed to find one. I didn't know I had it, but it was at the bottom of the box there. So I'm just going to use a bit of Pritt stick to stick this back on. Pritt stick I find to be the best way of reattaching old stickers. It's quite a gentle glue and it really does stick quite well, so we can just stick that onto the piece. Any excess glue we can wipe away with a tissue, but it just needs to be stuck in place. I'll let that glue dry. But there you go, that is the diver's watch now with the sticker back on. In fact, let's line that up so that it looks like it's pointing in the right direction. I'm not quite sure which way up this needs to be, but I'll line up the larger marks. There you go, I think that looks good. With these scuba tanks, they are held onto the body using a piece of elastic, and as with all elastic over time it perishes, so this one has no longer got any stretch left in it at all, and if I put it onto the Action Man it really hangs very floppy on the back of him. So what we've got to do is replace this elastic. Now you can get replacement elastic very easily. Just go onto eBay and they sell all sorts of different sizes. So this is flat black elastic, and this is 5mm wide flat black elastic, and that looks like a very good match to the elastic that was originally on this. Now what we've got to do is actually thread this through 4 holes. So you can see we've got 2 loops here, but it's actually just one continuous piece of elastic that's joined together at this point. And I guess when they made this, the tanks probably weren't in place, so they did the elastic and then stuck those on. So getting this elastic back in is going to be quite awkward because you've got some very small little holes to get it through, especially these lower ones which are sort of hidden by the tanks themselves. So I'm going to try something today which I've not tried before, but I think it will work. I'm going to cut this original elastic and then I'm going to actually sew this elastic, the new piece, to the old elastic, so I can then pull the old elastic through, and hopefully it will thread my new piece of elastic through, and then we can sew it back together. That's the plan. I've not tried it, we'll just give it a go. So I'm going to cut the elastic here like so, and then I'm going to sew my new piece of elastic on just at this end. I'm going to hopefully find a piece that's quite flat. I'll just trim that down. If I sew these two pieces together here, I could probably do it with a knot, but I'm not sure a knot would go through that hole. But I reckon if I sew those quite neatly there, I can then pull this through, and it will sort of feed its way through all of these, and then I can sew it back together and make a loop. Let's give it a try. So there it is sewn on, and my plan is now, if I pull this piece of elastic and sort of guide it through, I've got a pair of tweezers here as well just to help guide everything. I'm hoping that I can pull the new elastic through. Yeah, that's working quite well, so you can see that's being pulled through. So that's the top bit done. If I pull this now down to the bottom section here, and just put my new piece of elastic through carefully. Yep, that's gone through, and we'll try and pull it through this bit here. Yep, there we go. So my new piece of elastic is actually threaded through quite easily just because I've sewn it on. You can see I didn't sew it on particularly well because that's now come loose. But we've now got this new piece of elastic threaded through all the holes as it should have been. And what I've got to do now is cut it to a sort of shorter length, sew it again, so sew it properly, and we'll have some new bands, and that will be able to attach to Action Man. I'm going to cut the elastic fairly short because I want it quite tight to Action Man's back, so probably, let's see, a bit shorter than that even. I would guess something like that, because this elastic has quite a stretch to it, you can see, so we'll still be able to get it on the figure, but you want it quite taut to the back of Action Man. So let's get this sewn together. I'm going to trim off that there. I'll put some more thread on my needle, and I will sew this one properly so that it's not going to come undone, and we'll try it on the figure. Right, so that is now nice and firmly sewn together. I've actually pushed the bit that I've sewn into the back here, so it's hidden sort of behind the tanks. I don't think you can really see that at all. So they look very neat indeed. Let's put these onto Action Man and see how well they sit. Really, you want these tanks to be quite sort of firmly held to the back of the body, which is why I've done the elastic quite short. I'm guessing the original elastic was probably done quite short as well. It's just over the years, as it's perished, it's stretched to be longer and longer. And yeah, it sort of just loosens as time goes by. I think that is pretty firm. Yeah, that's looking good. It's nice and high up. Yeah, and then we can rotate the mouthpiece round. The tubes still rotate, and we can put that onto Action Man's mouth. Yep, that's good. So we can now move on to the next piece of damaged elastic. The next one to fix is the mask, and this suffers with the same problems as the scuba tank. The elastic perishes and is no longer got any stretch to it, so it doesn't actually stay in place. I actually have an entire video on repairing these, because often the little bit of plastic in the middle is missing as well. So check that out. In the meantime, I'm just going to go and replace this. You can just tie it on, but if you watch my video, you'll see that I prefer to sew them in place, because that's how they would have been done originally. So I'm going to sew this quickly, and then that mask can go back on to Action Man, and he'll start to look like a proper diver. Right, I've put new elastic on this. I'm not going to replace the bit of plastic. That is an original piece, so even though it's scratched, it has some age to it, and I think it will look just fine. So we can drop this onto Action Man's head, and now with the new elastic, it should actually stay in place really quite nicely. And that's actually what holds the mouthpiece in place. So once everything goes on like that, Yeah, that's looking good. So he's now really starting to look like a diver. There's one final piece of elastic that needs fixing on this figure, and that is the knife holder that goes on his leg down here. Because this is one of the sort of 40th or 50th anniversary reissues, the elastic is just too big. There's just too much of it, so it really is baggy on his leg. So I'm literally just going to undo the bit of sewing that's there and re-sew it slightly tighter, and then that should fit quite nicely. So let's get that done. I've now shortened both pieces of elastic, so you can see that's a lot shorter, and this bottom piece I've actually just tied a knot in it because I don't think I'd be able to sew that. It's a bit too thin, but hopefully this now will fit quite snugly on his leg rather than being all loose, which it was before. Yeah, that already feels a lot tighter, so it's certainly been worthwhile doing that. We can just move that up his leg till it's in about the right position. Make sure the elastic is over the wetsuit. Yeah, I think that's looking good, so I'll put the knife in place, and yeah, that's all fitted very nicely now, so we can put his flipper back on, and that is all the elastic work done on this figure. We can now move on to the sticks of dynamite. Now, the Navy Frogman should come with 3 sticks of dynamite because he is a demolition expert, but often when you find these sticks of dynamite, they are like this. The fuses have been snapped off. You should have a fuse that's about sort of 1.5 centimeters long. You can just leave them like that with them broken. They don't look too bad, but I thought I would try and replace them. And what I'm going to be using to do that is some 2mm styrene rod, and I've shown this quite a few times in various projects. You can get it at different sizes. I just happen to have 2mm thick styrene. It's possibly a bit too thick, but it makes it a little bit easier to work with, which is why I'm sticking with this. If you went for sort of 1.5mm, it might look a little bit more like the original, but you can see that is one that I have replaced already, and I don't think it looks too bad at all. It's just a little bit thicker. We can file it down a bit more if we want to make it a bit thinner. So all we've got to do is cut off the remains of the old part of the fuse. So I'm just going to use a pair of plastic nippers here. I'm going to cut that like that. So we've got a little mark in the middle. We then need to drill a 2mm hole into that, and for that I have my trusty pin vise here with a 2mm drill bit. So I will just drill this hole. Then we can insert some of this 2mm styrene and sort of give it a bit of a bend and make it look a little bit more like a fuse. You can see these have a little bit of a bend to them. 2mm styrene is very easy to bend. You can sort of easily twist it and shape it. You just stick it in some hot water. Actually, with this stuff you don't even need to do that. You can just literally bend it by hand, and as long as you don't bend it too far, you can make quite a nice sort of little curve in there. And that's all we're going to do. So I've just got to drill this 2mm hole. We can put some of that in and paint it, and then we'll have 3 sticks of dynamite. There we go, there's a hole in that. And now, because this is a 2mm hole and this is 2mm styrene, probably don't even need to glue this in place. We can just push this in like so, and then we'll trim a piece off because we want it to be, I'm going to say, about that long. And then I'm going to get a file and I'll just sort of shape the end a bit so that it doesn't look like it's been cut, and we can paint that green. It's really a very simple job indeed. For painting the newly added fuse, I'm going to be using some Humbrol acrylic, and this is number 30, which is a sort of, well, it's a very army green sort of colour, and I think just a little bit of that on the fuse will make it look like the original. The originals aren't painted particularly neatly at all. There's quite a lot of paint sort of dripped around the sort of the top of the stick of Dynamite, so you can be as neat or as messy as you want, and it would still look all authentic, because yeah, I guess they were painted incredibly quickly by someone, probably having to churn out hundreds of these every hour, so there was no need to be particularly neat about them. But you can see there just a little bit of that green on. It looks really quite nice. I'm going to put a top coat on this when it's dry, just to make it look a little bit shiny. Number 30 is a flat matte paint, so if I put a top coat, a sort of satin top coat, that will make it look a lot more like the original paint. But there you go, that is a stick of Dynamite with a new fuse added. And here is the finished Navy Frogman. I'm really pleased with how good this looks now that I've done all the work on it. There's nothing particularly complicated about restoring this figure. There's just lots of little bits to do, and it mainly seems to be replacing bits of elastic. But it's certainly worth putting that effort in, because I've now ended up with a figure that is really very displayable. I do really like this new sort of wetsuit. I know it's not a wetsuit, it's made out of fabric, but I think the look of it is really nice. And for me, I think it looks a whole lot better than the one that they produced for the 50th anniversary version of the Navy Frogman, or Scuba Diver as they called it then. The overall effect, as you can see, it does look good. It's a nice snug fit on the outfit, and it's a pretty cheap outfit to buy. As I say, it cost about $10, with a few dollars for postage all the way from China, and it only took a couple of weeks to get here. And this is certainly going to look very nice on display with the rest of my Action Man figures. And I know for a fact that now this suit is not going to perish over time. The problem with the original outfits is they were made out of rubber, much like the Action Man Space Rangers. That sort of latex rubber outfit just perishes over time. So with this, I know that part of it will carry on looking just as good as it does at the moment. Maybe over the next 40 years, the elastic that I've replaced will start to perish as well, but you know, I've shown that it's a pretty straightforward thing to replace, and something that you end up doing on quite a lot of Action Man outfits. I'm not sure I'd want to put this figure in the water, because mainly I think the outfit will just turn into a big soggy mess, and as with all old Action Men, there's a lot of things inside them that will rust. Back in the day it didn't matter as you were playing with this as a child, but now that these are sort of becoming more like collector's items, I would be a little bit more cautious about putting this chap in the water. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't do it. I would just make sure to dry him out thoroughly afterwards. I do need to say a massive thank you to Nick and Jackson, who have helped me out on this project, first of all by suggesting the new jumpsuit that I put on this figure, and they also helped me out with a couple of missing pieces that I needed for it. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.